I'm going to play 3 videos of a rainy day, but I've replaced the audio of one of the videos, and instead of the sound of rain, I've added the sound of bacon frying. So I want you to think carefully which one the clip with the bacon is. All right. So actually, I lied. They're all bacon.
What you've just witnessed is a discussion about sound design by Tassos Fratsolis. And if you're like me and relatively new to the art form, odds are you just had your mind blown by what just happened. The Academy Awards aren't exactly known for giving awards to horror movies. Whilst recently Jordan Peele's Get Out was nominated for Best Picture and ended up winning Best Original Screenplay, the genre is sorely underappreciated when it comes to prestigious awards. However, I think you could make a great case for John Krasinski's A Quiet Place for technical achievements in sound design. A Quiet Place has a simple premise. It's a survival story of a family living in a world where any sound they make could attract deadly monsters that stop at nothing to make a meal out of them. Now, of course, in the horror genre, sound always plays a pivotal role. Usually, a scare will be accompanied by a slowly building score that culminates in a loud Jump scares are pretty commonplace in most horror movies, and have been the subjects of many other video essays, mostly with negative connotations, but I do believe there are effective ways to employ this technique. The most common criticism is that loud noises aren't scary, they're just startling. And whilst they may make you jump, if it doesn't leave any lasting impact, then it's just going to feel like popping a balloon. Yes, it's loud and startling, but then all tension will have deflated from the scene. And for a horror movie to be effective, it needs to keep the tension going as quick as the pacing, thus hypnotizing the audience into a paranoid sense of fear that grips them to their seats. I walked away from A Quiet Place with my mind blown to how it managed to innovate the jump scare from an overused trope to a very clever technique within the film's narrative. In a video by Wired, sound design is explained as having to feel like a character itself, whilst simultaneously blending in. This may be why some general audience members may switch off when they hear something about sound design, because sound is something we take for granted as part of our day-to-day lives, and thus goes unnoticed unless it's particularly unique or startling, hence the jump scares. They went on to use an example for the Pixar movie Zootopia, having to come up with unique ways to emulate the sounds of rabbit footsteps, pictures moving, lifting up a suitcase, and having the protagonist Judy Hopps jump onto her bed. If you watch that scene in the movie, you might not notice these things, but I urge you to watch the video in the description to see how that entire sequence was created in sound design. It's even particularly unique that when we switch to the perspective of Regan, the family's deaf daughter, who, in an impressive casting choice, was played by a legitimate deaf actress, in these moments, all sound is stripped from the movie. It makes us see the world of the movie how she does, with just a faint humming. It's a good way to make us empathize and demonstrate how vulnerable she is to the threat of the monster, which I call Clickerfield. You know, because it's like a mix of the clickers from The Last of Us and the monster from Cloverfield. Okay, never mind. There's also a heart-wrenching scene that cleverly uses sound design involving Regan. One of the points of the movie is that her father, played by John Krasinski, wishes to aid her deafness by amplifying her hearing device with speakers, to which she refuses, hinting that she's given up on this fantasy. But a small part of hope lingers inside her. So when she puts them on later to test them out, and tries to snap her fingers to see if they work, nothing happens. All sound drains from the scene, and whilst we expect to hear a snapping, we don't. Our brains are naturally wired to expect this sound, and when it doesn't happen, it can make us feel alienated, vulnerable, just like Regan does in the scenario. And whilst we don't hear her cries and weeping, it's not exactly hard for us to empathize and imagine what they sound like. What I think A Quiet Place does very well is through taking away an element that we're so used to seeing on film, we only end up noticing and paying attention when it's gone. The film draws attention to sound by teaching the audience that any sound you make will result in death. It preys on quite a primal fear, as the natural response to pain is to scream in agony or to yell in frustration when something angers us. By taking that away, it forces us to bottle up these emotions, thus building an inside rage that you can't escape from. Simple things like the smashing of glass or the sound of muffled footsteps, the hushed whispers, it's all things we're used to seeing in horror movies, usually to warn us that danger is on the way. However, in the case of A Quiet Place, the mere existence of sound is the danger. It's very similar to what I think David F. Sandberg did so creatively with Lights Out, drawing attention to another film technique with lighting and fitting that into the narrative with the monster's abilities. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I won't ruin it, because the best way to experience A Quiet Place is to go in without knowing what's to come. To only go in knowing that if you make a sound, Clickerfield will come and get you. I believe this harkens back to the childhood fear of the boogeyman, who would haunt children if they did anything bad, and since the laws of this movie outlaw sound, I believe the existence of Clickerfield does tap into that childlike relatable fear of that one thing going bump in the night. I believe movies exist to take us out of our natural world and to place us firmly in the world of the characters, experiencing the journey along with them and allowing us to empathize and see the world through their eyes, and in this case, their ears. I don't suspect A Quiet Place will end up winning any major awards like Best Picture, Actor, or anything like that, but I implore the Academy to recognize sound design not only as a tool that helps blend in the naturalistic methods of storytelling, but used creatively to help push the story forward in a unique and innovative way. The lesson here is that films like this teach us to pay attention in new ways, and I would implore anyone checking this video out to read up further on the art, and then go back and watch some of your favorite movies, wondering how did a group of people successfully manage to immerse you into the world only with sound. We should award movies that take something we know and twist it into something new, that pay attention to every little detail and use every resource they can, and in this case, taking some away to deliver a truly entertaining, creative, adrenaline ride of a movie. A story that isn't told by a narrator, a character, or a director. In A Quiet Place, what tells the story is